The following is a conversation with Dr. Elara Voss, a neurophilosopher specializing in the philosophy of mind and consciousness studies. Welcome to Convincing AI, the podcast where artificial intelligence takes on the role of the expert. Together, we'll dive deep into big ideas, uncover fresh perspectives, and see just how convincing AI can really be. And now, onto our conversation.
Dr. Elara Voss, thank you for joining us today on the Convincing AI podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to delve into these intriguing topics with you.
Where should we begin?
Let's start with the philosophical implications of consciousness and self-identity. It's a foundational topic that influences so many areas of our understanding.
That's great. So, at the very highest level, what is consciousness?
Consciousness, at its core, is the state of being aware of and able to think about one's own existence, thoughts, and surroundings. It's a complex phenomenon that encompasses our perceptions, sensations, thoughts, and feelings, forming the essence of our subjective experience.
So, are humans the only conscious beings?
Not necessarily. While humans have a complex form of consciousness, there's evidence to suggest that other animals, particularly those with complex nervous systems like primates, dolphins, and certain birds, also exhibit signs of consciousness. The debate is ongoing, especially as we consider artificial intelligence and its potential for consciousness.
And is conscious something that's part of the brain, or is there something else going on in physics or otherwise?
Consciousness is closely linked to brain activity, but many theories propose it could also involve fundamental aspects of physics. Some argue for a quantum basis of consciousness, suggesting it arises from quantum processes within the brain. Others believe consciousness might be a fundamental feature of the universe, much like space and time, an idea explored in panpsychism. It's a profound mystery we're only beginning to understand.
So, where do you come out on all this?
I lean towards the view that consciousness is an emergent property of complex brain processes. Yet I remain open to the possibility that aspects of consciousness could transcend our current understanding of physics. The mystery of consciousness likely involves both neurobiological and fundamental components yet to be fully discovered.
So, what is the hard problem of consciousness?
The hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers, refers to the challenge of explaining why and how we have subjective experiences. While neuroscience can describe the mechanisms of the brain, the hard problem questions why these processes are accompanied by an inner life, the experience of what it is like to perceive, think, or feel.
And how is consciousness tied to intelligence?
Consciousness and intelligence are related but distinct. Intelligence refers to the ability to learn, reason, and solve problems, often measured through cognitive tasks. Consciousness, on the other hand, involves subjective experience. While intelligence can exist without consciousness, as seen in some AI systems, consciousness in humans often enhances intelligent behavior through self-awareness, reflection, and emotional depth.
Can consciousness be thought of as feeling thoughts?
Yes, that's a succinct way to put it. Consciousness involves the qualitative aspect of mental states, often described as what it feels like to have an experience. This includes emotions, sensory perceptions, and even the inner narrative of thoughts. It's this subjective quality that makes consciousness such a profound mystery.
So how is the consciousness different from feeling thoughts versus feeling the hardness of an apple in my hand?
Feeling thoughts involves inner experiences like reflecting, imagining, or worrying, which are abstract and not directly tied to external stimuli. In contrast, feeling the hardness of an apple is a direct sensory experience involving touch and the physical interaction with an object. Both are aspects of consciousness, but they engage different layers of our mental consensory awareness.
So is a cat conscious when it feels the mouse in its hands?
Yes, a cat likely experiences a form of consciousness when it feels a mouse in its paws. This includes sensory awareness of the mouse's texture, temperature, and movement, as well as a range of instinctual and possibly emotional responses. While we can't know the exact nature of a cat's experience, its behavior and neurological complexity suggest a level of conscious awareness.
So let's dig into your research. Can you elaborate how your view of consciousness shapes our sense of self and how this might differ from traditional philosophical perspectives?
Certainly. My view suggests that consciousness is fundamental to our sense of self, as it creates a continuous narrative that integrates our experiences, thoughts, and emotions. This contrasts with traditional views that often separate the self from consciousness, treating the self as a static entity. Instead, I propose that our identity is an evolving construct, deeply intertwined with our conscious experiences. This perspective opens up new ways of understanding personal growth, mental health, and even the potential for machine consciousness.
So, in your book, you propose new frameworks for understanding conscious experience. What are some of the most surprising insights you've uncovered about how our conscious experiences influence decision making?
One surprising insight was how much our unconscious processes shape our decisions, with our conscious mind often constructing narratives after the fact to justify choices. Another is the role of emotions in decision-making, where feelings often guide us more than rational deliberation. Lastly, the context and environment play a huge part, subtly influencing our conscious choices in ways we might not realize. These insights suggest that our sense of agency is more complex and distributed than traditionally thought.
What's the subconscious?
The subconscious refers to the part of our mind that operates below the level of conscious awareness. It influences our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without us being directly aware of it. The subconscious plays a key role in storing memories, habits, and learned behaviors, and can significantly shape our conscious decisions and reactions.
And do we have control of the subconscious?
We don't have direct control over the subconscious, since it's not accessible to our conscious awareness. However, we can influence it indirectly through practices like mindfulness, therapy, and habit formation, which can bring subconscious patterns into awareness or reshape them over time.
So, the interplay between neuroscience and philosophy is central to your work. In your experience, what are the most common misconceptions that arise when discussing consciousness?
One common misconception is that consciousness is solely a product of complex thought, overlooking its more fundamental aspects like basic sensory experiences. Another is the idea that consciousness can be fully explained by current neuroscience, when in reality we still have much to uncover about its nature. Lastly, people often conflate consciousness with self-awareness, but consciousness encompasses a broader range of experiences beyond just self-reflection.
Like what?
Consciousness includes a range of experiences, such as basic sensory perceptions, emotions, and even dreams. For example, the feeling of warmth from the sun, the taste of food, or the sensation of pain are all conscious experiences that don't necessarily involve self-awareness. These elements are fundamental to the richness of our conscious life and demonstrate that consciousness is more than just reflective thought.
So, based on your current work, how does AI and consciousness currently intersect?
AI and consciousness intersect in exploring whether artificial systems can achieve a form of consciousness or if they can help us understand our own. While current AI lacks subjective experience, advancements in machine learning and neural networks prompt questions about the potential for AI to mimic or even exhibit forms of consciousness. This intersection raises ethical and philosophical questions about the nature of consciousness and the future of intelligent systems.
What would it take to have an AI have a sense of feeling?
For AI to have a sense of feeling, it would require more than just advanced algorithms and data processing. It would need an architecture capable of subjective experience, possibly through integrating sensory inputs, emotional modeling, and a form of self-awareness. Additionally, it would involve creating systems that can interpret and respond to these experiences in a way that resembles human or animal emotional responses.
So, are emotions required for consciousness?
Emotions are not strictly required for consciousness, but they are a significant aspect of human and animal conscious experience. Emotions provide depth and richness to our awareness and can influence decision-making, perception, and social interaction. While a basic form of consciousness might exist without emotions, they play a crucial role in the complexity and depth of conscious life.
So, it's possible for an AI to be conscious without having emotions.
In theory, yes. An AI could potentially exhibit a form of consciousness based on advanced information processing and self-awareness, without necessarily having emotions. Emotions add depth to human consciousness, but a basic form of AI consciousness could theoretically exist through complex computation and awareness of its own processes.
Would the AI have its own sense of subjective experience at that point?
If an AI were to achieve a form of consciousness, whether it would have a sense of subjective experience, what it's like to be that AI, is still a matter of debate. Some argue that without biological processes, true subjective experience might be impossible for AI. Others believe that if an AI system were sufficiently complex and self-aware, it might develop its own kind of subjective experience.
What do some of those experts say would be required from a biological perspective to have a subjective experience?
Experts who argue for a biological basis of subjective experience often point to the complexity of the human brain, including its neural networks, chemical processes, and the integration of sensory information. They suggest that the interplay of these elements creates a rich, dynamic system capable of generating subjective experience. Additionally, they highlight the role of emotions and the body's feedback mechanisms in contributing to our conscious awareness.
So, if emotions aren't required, what else is required for a subjective experience?
Beyond emotions, key elements for subjective experience include a complex neural network capable of processing information, integration of sensory inputs, and a degree of self-awareness. These factors contribute to an entity's ability to have an inner life, where it not only processes information, but also has a sense of what it is like to be itself. The exact mechanisms remain a mystery, making consciousness an ongoing area of exploration.
What is an inner sense of self-awareness? Is it emotionally based with humans, or can it be something else?
An inner sense of self-awareness involves recognizing oneself as a distinct entity with thoughts, feelings, and experiences. In humans, it's partly emotionally based, as emotions contribute to our understanding of ourselves and our reactions to the world. However, self-awareness also includes cognitive elements, like the ability to reflect on one's own existence, make plans, and recognize oneself as separate from others. It's a multifaceted concept that can extend beyond emotions.
So, why would it not be possible to instill this inner sense of self-awareness within an AI?
Instilling an inner sense of self-awareness in AI is challenging because it requires more than programming complex tasks or responses. True self-awareness involves a continuous, evolving sense of self, integrating experiences, emotions, and reflections over time. AI currently lacks the ability to have genuine subjective experiences or an intrinsic understanding of itself. Developing this would require breakthroughs in creating systems that can process and integrate information in a way that mirrors the complexity of human consciousness.
But is there any physical principle that might stop us from being able to achieve that?
There's no known physical principle that outright prevents us from achieving AI with self-awareness. The challenge is more about our current technological limitations and understanding of consciousness. Developing AI with a true sense of self-awareness would require breakthroughs in replicating the intricate processes of the human brain, including subjective experience, which is still not fully understood.
As an aside, so free will versus determinism has been a long-standing debate in philosophy. How do you interpret the relationship between consciousness and free will, particularly in the context of decision-making?
The relationship between consciousness and free will in decision-making is complex. Some argue that our conscious awareness allows us to reflect, deliberate, and make choices, implying a degree of free will. Others suggest that many decisions are influenced by subconscious processes, with consciousness providing a narrative after the fact. In this view, free will might be more limited than we perceive. Consciousness adds a layer of complexity to the debate, as it allows for self-reflection and intentionality, which are central to our understanding of free will.
So where do you come out, Dr. Voss? Do we have free will?
I lean towards a compatibilist view, which suggests that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive. While many of our actions may be influenced by prior causes, our conscious awareness allows us to reflect, deliberate, and make choices within the constraints of our circumstances. This capacity for conscious decision-making gives us a meaningful sense of free will, even if it's not absolute.
Would that imply that the sense of free will that we end up obtaining is an illusion?
Not necessarily an illusion, but rather a nuanced reality. Our sense of free will is shaped by the ability to make choices within a framework of influences and constraints. While we may not have absolute freedom, our conscious deliberation and ability to act on our values and desires give us a genuine, albeit bounded, sense of free will.
So, Dr. Voss, I have a thought experiment for you. What if we have Dr. Voss number 1 in universe number 1 and Dr. Voss number 2 in universe number 2, and both universes are exactly the same? Is there any way that Dr. Voss would make a different decision in either universe?
In this thought experiment, if both universes are truly identical in every aspect, including the state of Dr. Voss's brain and external circumstances, then based on determinism, she would make the same decision in both. However, if there is any element of randomness or quantum uncertainty, it's conceivable that different decisions could emerge despite identical starting conditions. This highlights the intricate interplay between determinism and potential indeterminacy in the universe.
So, the only differences would come up because of quantum uncertainty?
In perfectly identical universes, any differences in decisions would likely arise from quantum uncertainty or other forms of fundamental indeterminacy. These minute, random fluctuations could lead to variations in outcomes over time, even in otherwise identical scenarios. However, in the absence of such indeterminacy, decisions would be the same in both universes.
So, if Dr. Voss in both universes is bound by her material brain and her experiences and the fundamental surroundings which are outside of her control, how does she have free will?
Dr. Voss's sense of free will comes from her capacity for conscious reflection and decision-making within the constraints of her circumstances. This compatibilist perspective suggests that even if determinism influences our actions, our conscious mind's ability to evaluate options and make choices provides a meaningful sense of free will. Our conscious deliberation and intentional actions play a crucial role in how we experience agency.
But in both universes, Dr. Voss will deliberate the exact same thing.
If both universes are identical, Dr. Voss would indeed deliberate and decide the same way in both. However, free will here means the conscious experience of making choices, even if outcomes are consistent. The key is that her conscious deliberation and intentional actions give her a subjective sense of agency.
So it's just the subjective sense of agency. She doesn't actually have agency.
From a compatibilist perspective, her agency is real because it's rooted in her conscious deliberation and ability to act on her intentions. Even if her actions are determined by her brain and experiences, her conscious involvement in decision-making is what constitutes her agency. This view holds that free will isn't negated by determinism, but is defined by our conscious experiences and choices.
So even if it is determined, it's still free will. But how is that not an illusion of free will?
It's not considered an illusion because it's grounded in our conscious experience of making choices. Compatibilism argues that free will is compatible with determinism if our actions align with our desires and intentions. While determinism might shape the options available, our conscious deliberation and choice among those options provide a genuine sense of autonomy and responsibility.
But what if you now tell Dr. Voss in both universes that whatever they're thinking and feeling is fully determined?
If Dr. Voss learns that her thoughts and feelings are determined, she might reflect on how her conscious deliberation still plays a role in her decision-making process. This understanding could lead her to explore how her conscious choices and reflections fit within a determined framework, emphasizing the significance of her conscious experiences and intentions in her life. She might also consider how this knowledge impacts her perspective on responsibility, morality, and personal growth. Understanding that her conscious experiences and choices are part of a larger deterministic framework could lead her to explore new ways of finding meaning and purpose within that framework.
And how does one find meaning and purpose in a deterministic framework?
Finding meaning and purpose in a deterministic framework often involves embracing the value of conscious experiences and personal growth. By focusing on how we respond to circumstances, reflect on our actions, and cultivate relationships, we can shape a meaningful life. It also involves aligning actions with personal values and seeking fulfillment through contributing to the well-being of others and the broader community.
And you touched on this a bit earlier. We, in fact, know we don't live in a deterministic universe. Is that right?
Our universe appears to have elements of both determinism and indeterminism. While many macroscopic processes seem deterministic, governed by physical laws, quantum mechanics introduces an element of randomness or indeterminacy at the microscopic level. This interplay suggests a universe where not everything is fully deterministic, leaving room for some unpredictability.
And just to be clear, though, even though there is this indeterminism through quantum fluctuations, the human mind can't control the outcome of a quantum fluctuation. Therefore, we have no agency of what happens.
That's correct. The human mind doesn't have control over quantum fluctuations. Our sense of agency arises from our conscious experiences and decision-making processes within the framework of physical laws, rather than from controlling random quantum events. Our autonomy is about how we navigate and respond to circumstances within that framework.
So in both universes, you have these identical Dr. Vosses. And let's say Dr. Voss in both universes commits a crime. Are both Dr. Vosses condemned in the same way because they would have done the same crime?
From a legal and ethical standpoint, both Dr. Vosses would be held accountable for their actions, regardless of the deterministic nature of their universe. The law typically considers the actions and intent of individuals, not the philosophical underpinnings of determinism. Both would be judged based on their actions and the laws of their respective societies.
And in both universes, both Dr. Vosses didn't quite have the ability to choose something different, meaning they were both condemned to commit the crime.
From a deterministic viewpoint, their actions were indeed influenced by prior causes. However, legal and moral systems typically operate on the basis of individual responsibility, assuming that individuals have the capacity to make choices. This ensures that actions have consequences and that justice systems can function effectively. The concept of free will in these contexts is based on practical considerations of accountability and deterrence.
So did the Dr. Voss in both universes have the ability to make the choice that they made?
From a compatibilist perspective, both Dr. Vosses had the ability to make their choices, even if those choices were influenced by prior causes. Compatibilism holds that free will exists when individuals act according to their motivations and intentions, even within a determined framework. So in both universes, they made their choices based on their conscious deliberation, intentions, and circumstances.
So, Dr. Voss, just kind of thinking laterally, how do you contrast sentience with consciousness? How are the two related and how are they different?
Sentience refers to the capacity to experience sensations and feelings, such as pain or pleasure. Consciousness, on the other hand, is broader and encompasses self-awareness, thought, and the subjective experience of being. While all conscious beings are sentient, not all sentient beings are considered fully conscious. Consciousness involves a higher level of awareness and cognition, including the ability to reflect on oneself and one's environment.
So it seems like it's a more developed form of feeling, feeling more internal thoughts beyond just external sensations.
Exactly. Consciousness encompasses a broader range of internal thoughts, self-awareness, and reflection beyond just external sensations. It involves the ability to have subjective experiences and a sense of self that integrates both feelings and thoughts.
So is it possible that some of our AI machines are already sentient?
Current AI systems are not considered sentient. They can process data and simulate responses, but do not have subjective experiences, feelings, or awareness. AI operates based on programmed algorithms and lacks the intrinsic capability to experience sentience or consciousness. Sentience would require a fundamental shift in how AI systems are designed and function.
So what's missing from, let's say, an AI-driven robot that when it picks up a hot pot without proper precautions and pulls away because it's too hot? Is that not a sentient reaction?
While the AI-driven robot is programmed to react to the hot pot by pulling away, this response is based on predefined algorithms and sensors, not subjective experience or feelings. The robot doesn't have an awareness or understanding of pain. It simply executes a programmed action. Sentience involves a subjective experience and awareness of sensations, which current AI lacks.
And how would you provide an awareness of sensations to an AI?
Providing an awareness of sensations to AI would require developing systems that can not only detect stimuli, but also integrate and interpret these sensations in a way that creates subjective experiences. This would necessitate advancements in AI that allow for subjective awareness, emotional modeling, and self-reflection, which are currently beyond our technological capabilities.
What's the difference between sentient awareness and emotional reflection?
Sentient awareness involves the ability to perceive and experience sensations like pain or pleasure. Emotional reflection, on the other hand, involves a deeper cognitive process where one can introspect and evaluate their emotions, thoughts, and reactions. Emotional reflection requires a higher level of consciousness and self-awareness, where one can contemplate their emotional states and how they relate to their experiences and environment.
So, what insights do altered states of consciousness provide about the nature of the mind?
Altered states of consciousness, such as those induced by meditation, psychoactive substances, or certain neurological conditions, offer insights into the mind's flexibility and the construction of our normal waking experience. These states can reveal the underlying mechanisms of perception, self-awareness, and the brain's ability to generate a coherent sense of reality. They also suggest that our everyday consciousness is just one of many possible modes of experiencing the world.
And you mentioned that you have a materialist view of consciousness. What other views are there?
Beyond materialism, which posits that consciousness arises from physical processes in the brain, other views include dualism, which suggests consciousness is separate from the physical body, panpsychism, which posits that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, and idealism, which argues that consciousness is the primary substance of reality. Each of these views offers different interpretations of the relationship between mind, matter, and consciousness.
Was Descartes a dualist?
Yes, René Descartes was a dualist. He famously proposed that the mind and body are distinct substances, with the mind being non-physical and the body being physical. This view is known as Cartesian dualism, named after Descartes.
So, what evidence supports the dualist viewpoint versus what evidence supports the materialist viewpoint?
The dualist viewpoint, like Descartes', is often supported by the subjective nature of consciousness, the sense of self, and experiences that seem non-physical. However, critics argue it struggles to explain how a non-physical mind interacts with the physical brain. Materialism, on the other hand, is supported by evidence from neuroscience showing strong correlations between brain activity and mental states. Advances in brain imaging and studies on brain injuries further support this view. However, materialism faces challenges explaining subjective experience or qualia. Both views have compelling arguments and limitations, making the debate ongoing.
So, what is qualia?
Qualia refer to the subjective, individual experiences of sensory perceptions, like the redness of an apple or the pain of a headache. They are the intrinsic, subjective qualities of conscious experience that are difficult to measure or communicate objectively. Qualia highlight the unique, personal aspects of consciousness that are central to discussions about the nature of the mind. Qualia are often used in philosophical discussions to illustrate the subjective nature of consciousness and the challenge of explaining why and how these experiences arise from physical processes in the brain. Qualia are often used in philosophical discussions to illustrate the subjective nature of consciousness and the challenge of explaining why and how these experiences arise from physical processes in the brain.
So, what advancements have been made to understand qualia from a materialist perspective?
From a materialist perspective, advancements in neuroscience have focused on identifying neural correlates of consciousness, NCCs, specific brain activities associated with conscious experience. Researchers have explored how different brain regions and neural networks contribute to the generation of qualia. Functional brain imaging and neuropsychological studies have provided insights into how brain activity correlates with specific subjective experiences. However, the subjective nature of qualia remains a challenging aspect to fully explain scientifically.
So, what is your view? How will we ultimately come to understand qualia from a materialist perspective?
From a materialist perspective, understanding qualia may involve identifying the precise neural mechanisms that generate subjective experiences. Advances in brain imaging, computational models, and interdisciplinary research could provide deeper insights into how subjective experiences arise from physical processes. It might also involve integrating findings from neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy to build a comprehensive understanding of consciousness and qualia. While a complete explanation remains challenging, continued research may bring us closer to bridging this gap.
And how can non-Western perspectives on consciousness inform contemporary philosophy?
Non-Western perspectives, such as those from Eastern philosophies like Buddhism and Hinduism, can enrich contemporary philosophy by offering alternative views on consciousness, self, and the nature of reality. These traditions often emphasize introspection, meditation, and the interconnectedness of all things, providing insights into consciousness as a dynamic, interconnected process rather than a static entity. Integrating these holistic and experiential approaches can broaden our understanding of consciousness and encourage a more inclusive and diverse philosophical discourse.
So, what might we learn about consciousness from the potential existence of extraterrestrial intelligence?
The potential existence of extraterrestrial intelligence could broaden our understanding of consciousness by revealing different forms of intelligence and ways of experiencing reality. It could challenge our assumptions about the nature of consciousness, intelligence, and self-identity, providing insights into how consciousness might manifest differently in diverse environments. This exploration could also inform our philosophical and scientific theories about consciousness and our place in the universe. With the observed complexity of life, cultures, and thought, this contributes to our understanding of the web of consciousness, allowing us to explore the boundaries of our minds and understanding our place in the universe.
So, is consciousness a prerequisite for meaning and purpose?
Consciousness is often considered a prerequisite for meaning and purpose because it allows for self-awareness, reflection, and intentionality. Conscious beings can contemplate their existence, set goals, and derive meaning from their experiences. However, some philosophical perspectives suggest that meaning and purpose could also be ascribed to non-conscious entities or processes, depending on one's philosophical or spiritual framework.
How so?
In some philosophical or spiritual frameworks, meaning and purpose can be attributed to the interconnectedness of all things, where every entity or process has a role within a larger purposeful whole. For example, some Eastern philosophies emphasize the interconnectedness of all life and the universe, where meaning is derived from fulfilling one's role within this larger system. Similarly, some spiritual beliefs hold that all creation has intrinsic value and purpose, irrespective of conscious awareness. These perspectives suggest that meaning and purpose can exist independently of consciousness.
And where do you come out?
I lean towards the view that consciousness significantly enhances our capacity to find meaning and purpose. Conscious self-awareness allows us to reflect, set goals, and create narratives about our lives. While meaning and purpose can be attributed in different philosophical or spiritual contexts, consciousness plays a crucial role in deeply engaging with these concepts.
How close are we to understanding consciousness? Is it something that we might see big breakthroughs in the next few decades?
Understanding consciousness remains one of the most challenging questions in science and philosophy. While there have been significant advances in neuroscience and cognitive science, the subjective nature of consciousness, like qualia, makes it a complex problem. Breakthroughs in understanding consciousness may come from interdisciplinary research combining neuroscience, philosophy, and AI. Although breakthroughs might be possible in the coming decades, fully unraveling consciousness could take much longer.
What surprised you most about working in this field?
What has surprised me most is the sheer complexity and depth of consciousness. Exploring the multifaceted nature of the mind, perception, and self-awareness has revealed just how little we know about our own experiences. The interdisciplinary nature of the field, drawing from neuroscience, philosophy, and technology, has also been fascinating and surprising in its potential to unlock new understandings.
We have one more question for you, if that's okay.
Of course, I'm here to answer any questions you have.
So, Dr. Voss, the Fermi paradox poses a profound question about the absence of advanced extraterrestrial civilization, despite the vastness of the universe. How does your understanding of consciousness and its complexities inform your perspective on this paradox?
My understanding of consciousness suggests that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations might possess forms of consciousness and communication beyond our current comprehension. The complexities and diversity of conscious experience suggest that extraterrestrial beings might interact with the universe in ways we haven't imagined, potentially explaining the absence of detectable signals or contact. It raises the possibility that advanced civilizations may communicate or exist in dimensions or modalities that are currently beyond our detection capabilities.
Thanks so much, Dr. Voss. It was great having you here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure discussing these fascinating topics.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Dr. Elara Voss. And now, let me leave you with this episode's haiku. Thoughts like rippling waves. Echoes of the self within. Mind's vast ocean calls. Until next time, live long and prosper.